As we mentioned earlier, this week's brutal market sell-off has wiped $1.7 trillion in market capitalization from the S&P 500. Joining us right now by phone to try and put this in some perspective is Lee Cooperman. He's Omega Family Office Chairman and CEO. And Lee, we've talked an awful lot about this, the volatility we've seen the last couple of days and the straight down action. Are you a buyer or a seller in the market today?
I'm doing both, but I would say that on balance, I would be a buyer. I think the significance of an event for the market is a function of what the market was discounting when the event occurred. If you go back, I was on with one of your colleagues, Scott Wapner, on February 18th, and I said the market was knocking on the door of euphoria, that there were lots of issues that were being ignored by the market. I've lost a lot of money the last few days, don't get me wrong, because I'm an investor. But I would say that to have a strong opinion about the market today, you have to have a strong opinion about two issues. And one is the coronavirus. Does it get under control in a reasonable time frame? And second, that we don't have a socialist or communist in the White House. Okay. I have no expertise in the coronavirus other than my confidence that mankind will conquer this problem, and I think it'll be resolved by June. And again, I want to make it very clear, I have no particular expertise in that regard.
Second, which problem, Lee? The socialist problem or the coronavirus?
No, coronavirus.
Okay. All right, you don't.
Okay, the socialist problem, we'll have to see.
Might not be conquered by June.
I don't think the country is so leftist in its orientation that a Bernie Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren will be elected president. You know, Bernie Sanders, we got to make it very clear, he is not a socialist. He is rather a communist. Socialists advocate wealth redistribution. Communists advocate nationalizing the means of production and tearing down the house that wealth built. That's his approach. The fact that he spoke so positively about Fidel Castro. I went to Cuba 3 years ago. Okay, now I've said this on your program, I think, more than once, but I'll say it again. The Cuban people are hardworking, industrious, very good people. They're prospering in Miami. You go to Cuba, and what do you see? They get a quarter of a chicken once a month for their protein rationing. It takes 2 hours to get from the suburbs to downtown Havana because they do not have an organized transportation system. It costs $3.85 a minute to get a cell phone, so they can't afford cell phones. They get no satellite service, no newspaper service, and they live in dilapidated conditions. And that is socialism or communism versus capitalism. It doesn't make any sense, you know, and we'll have to see this play out. I listened to the debate last night, you know.
Leon.
I just don't think the country's prepared for socialism.
Leon, what do you say to like the 50 million plus people that believe that if you read the policies and take the label of socialism aside, he really looks more like a social democrat that's akin to a politician in the Nordic countries than he does to, you know, Fidel Castro 2.0?
I don't know. That's not how Bernie Sanders sounds to me. My main hang-up has been all along the constant attacking of wealthy people, the villainizing of the billionaire class. Now, I luckily got into the billionaire class, but I'm one of these guys, I'm going to give it all away. I don't care much about money, okay? I don't get it. You know, I look at a Mike Bloomberg, the way he's treated in these debates, whether he's attacked. Mike Bloomberg knew unemployment. He lost out in a power struggle when he was in his mid-30s. He had his vision of building a machine. He built a ubiquitous machine that you need if you're in the investment business. He's built a $60 billion net worth. He gave away $9 billion to charity on his own well before he became involved in a big political way. He did a fabulous job as mayor of New York, okay, in the biggest city in the world, and they're attacking him. And he had a great line in the last debate, not last night, where he said, I'm the only guy on this platform that built a business. And they all looked at each other blank. Bernie Sanders has not worked a day in his life.
Yeah, but Leon, I just think at the end of the day, look, I've been equally blessed as you, so I'm in the same fortunate position you're in. But at the end of the day, if the worst thing that happens is people name call us a little bit and call us billionaires and detached, that's not the worst thing in the world if it allows us to wake up to the reality that a lot of people haven't been able to participate in what has really been, an equity market expansion where, folks like you and I who can be, long equities in a massive way, levered up, access to certain products, can do well to a degree that everybody else can't. I think what people are saying is, let's just acknowledge that that's happened, and it's not a name calling. We shouldn't just be so sensitive.
It goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. I'm a believer in the progressive income tax structure. I believe rich people should pay more. Okay, what we have to do as a nation is agree upon what should the maximum marginal tax rate be on wealthy people. That will define the revenue yield to the government, and we have to size the government to that revenue yield. Now, I'm prepared to work 6 months a year for the government and 6 months for myself. That's a 50% marginal tax rate. Unfortunately, depending on what state you live in, you're already past there between state and federal income taxes. And if it gets to be confiscatory, there's a great comment that I read recently by Thomas Sowell. He said, since this is an era when many people are concerned about fairness and social justice, what is your fair share of what someone else has worked for? Okay, I'm willing to pay a 50% marginal tax. I have no problem with that. Okay, I just think that the dialogue is destructive. It's not inclusive. So I'll give you a perfect example. I spoke at the Delivering Alpha conference a number of months ago. Nothing whatsoever was said about politics. The moderator, Scott Wapner, asked me a question after I gave my formal presentation and said, what do I think the market would do if Elizabeth Warren was elected president? And I said it would go down 25%. I think you had a different view. I've heard you previously. Okay, and the next day she tweets, Leon, I'm only looking for 2%. Give others a chance at the American dream. She has no clue about anything about me. Okay, I've given away several $100 million in the last 3 years to charity.
I sent 500
kids. Let me finish, please, if I may. I sent 500 kids to college in Newark, New Jersey. I pay their tuition. Okay, and basically, but I decided to take the high road. Okay, Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I send her a rather well-written letter, very respectful, very conciliatory, with a closing paragraph about all of us have to work together to deal with the issues. But there are issues. I don't deny that. There are issues. My approach to resolving the issues is through education and hopefully faster economic growth. What does she do? She puts out a bullet, comment, insider trader, and own stock in Navient. Very constructive. The Wall Street Journal wrote an editorial page comment that day. She said Mr. Cooperman won the case. What is she accusing him of? But it was nothing constructive. She was a politician in the worst sense of the word. Okay, and that we need people that see the issues. I like the fact that in certain respects Mike Bloomberg was a Republican, in certain respects he's a Democrat. He's voting issues. Okay, we have to avoid the labels. We have to work together in a cooperative manner. And all this income differentiation has been really the result of monetary policy.
Leon, I want to get a response from Chamath, but I want to add one other piece to it. And I'll speak not for you, but I'll add another element to this, which is assuming that a Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were put into office, and I know that you're okay with maybe some of the criticism that the vocal criticism that they have about the billionaire class, but the question is, from a policy perspective, are you okay or encouraging of that policy? And to the extent that you can appoint the head of the Department of Justice and say, please go look at these individuals. If you could say, if you can appoint the head of the SEC who is going to maybe look into various companies in a more aggressive way. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just raising the issues, even if you have a completely divided Congress, how you see this playing itself out.
It doesn't matter who gets elected, in my opinion.
It doesn't.
I have sort of generally lost faith in the power and the impact of the presidency in domestic policy for years. It is generally been the case that the President of the United States is given one hall pass to do one meaningful piece of legislation in the first 2 years of their term, at which point the American population either flips the House or flips the Senate and creates stasis. And it has happened relatively predictably now, and I think that it will continue to happen. And so the question is, what do we think is the most likely thing to happen? When Trump came into office, the only thing that they were able to get done in which Republicans were able to corral the wagons was tax cuts and tax change. But everything else basically just came to a grinding halt. Obama was the same thing.
I don't agree with that. I think that when Trump, I'm not a Trump fan, okay, but I believe the man deserves a certain amount of credit for what has gone on. I don't like his style, And so at the end of the day, you have to decide, you vote your values or you vote your pocketbook. I'm at a stage in my life where I want to vote my values, and my values tell me that it is wrong to call Mitt Romney a jackass. It is wrong to tell Rex Tillerson he's dumb as a rock. It's wrong to denigrate John McCain, who was a true war hero. It's wrong, basically, to say John Dingell is looking up and not down, even though I had totally different political views than him. Okay, but the president deserves credit. Okay, when he came in, it was like they took the foot off the throat of the economy. The economy and the stock market is at a record high. Unemployment for minorities is at a record low. Overall employment in the economy is at a record high. We've opened up a long overdue constructive dialogue on trade with China. We focus attention on illegal immigration. All this is good stuff. The problem with it is his deportment. And I analogize him to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was a very beloved president. Okay, when Ronald Reagan ran for office, he said, I had a three-pronged program. Prong one, get the government off the backs of the people. I'm going to do that by reducing taxes and regulation. Ditto for Trump. He said, I'm going to restore the lost prestige of the United States after the Carter years. I'm going to do that by rebuilding our defense. Ditto for Trump.
Let's get back to the crux of the matter is, even if you soft soap Bernie Sanders' policies and say it's a Nordic-style democratic socialism, it would still reverse a lot of these positive things that has happened. It's that simple. $60 trillion on the Green New Deal or $50 trillion on Medicare for All is not just having a conversation about people that haven't participated.
It's a lot of free stuff. The young people,
let's be practical. They're not going to be able to get these things done.
Talking about that even these things
we don't need a gridlock in government. We don't need gridlock in government.
To not understand economics anymore, to not understand that capitalism got us where we are. So you can have these great, high-minded, Nordic, social democratic conversations, but it's a dangerous place you're trying to take us. You're saying we can't get there, so just have the conversation. But why not acknowledge that it's capitalism and it's free markets that got us where we are?
Last time I checked, we're allowed to have a diversity of opinions.
Okay,
I think you're seeing an entire cohort of young people.
You got Bernie Sanders leading the pack in the Democratic field, and that is a problem for Democrats.
Again, look,
if you think that's okay, that he's going to get the nomination, that's fine. I think you've dug
I take a lot of energy in learning about what's happening. I take a lot of energy in reframing.
We're stuck with Bernie versus Trump. That could be the end result of all this.
Let me do this. You guys wanted to talk about the market. We can talk about politics.
Go ahead, Leon. We weren't going to talk politics.
Basically, as I said at the outset,
socialism is dangerous.
I said at the outset, the significance of an event for the market is a function of what the market was discounting. If you go back a week ago, you're 3,400 in the market, you're knocking on the door of euphoria. Okay, all of a sudden, this is a sexist analogy, you know, I have to be very careful, but all of a sudden, the beautiful lady or the handsome man developed a blemish, and the blemish was the coronavirus. And then what happens is these quantitative algorithmic traders take over, and they create a level of volatility that destabilizes. If you have a view in the coronavirus, okay, and I tend to have an optimistic take that by June we'll resolve it. Again, I have no expertise in that regard. I do not think the country is ready to elect a socialist, okay, that I think that the correction is healthy for the market, even though I go us a ton of money. It's healthy. It took out some of this euphoria. You go back a week ago. I don't own a share. I don't know anything about Virgin Galactic. But you look at Tesla, Virgin Galactica, and what the Fed has created here. They created a very speculative environment. There's zero cost of money. It basically forces speculation. We've taken some air out of the bubble, and that's constructive. If I had a guess, and this is just a guess, we're not far from a correction low. Again, is predicated on the two assumptions I'm making. And the market would slosh around for a while and then go back up. You know, I look, the S&P is yielding well above Fed funds, well above the 10-year government. Companies are growing. There's the ability to substitute debt for equity in the capital structure, given multiples on stocks versus where interest rates are. And the normal creations of bear markets are accelerating inflation, recession, hostile Fed, or significant geopolitical event that you cannot forecast. And whether this coronavirus is that significant geopolitical event, we'll have to wait and see. But my guess is it'll be controlled. And that's my story.
Lee, you said you're a net buyer today. Were you a net buyer of stocks yesterday, too?
I'm doing a little bit every day. I can't pick the bottom. I'm doing a little bit every day. I mean, I got 3 earnings calls at 8:30 of companies we're involved in. But, you know, I find a lot of value in the market. If you're sticking with big companies like a Cigna or United, look at United Airlines. They came out with their commentary. The stock is trading at 6 times what they expect to earn this year. They took out guidance, but they can't give you guidance until they know what happens with the virus. They bought back close to 40% of their company in the last 5 or 6 years at attractive prices. They generate substantial free cash flow, and it's a 6 multiple stock. So I have a large position, but I added a little bit to that one. I just find a lot of very attractively priced stocks, and I do a little bit of buying every day, and I do some selling too. Harvest tax losses where I think that the risk reward isn't particularly favorable, but I'm engaged. But I think it requires a view on the coronavirus and a view on politics.
Can I ask you very quickly? I know you've got 3 conference calls you just mentioned that you have to jump off for, but last week, I think with Scott Wapner, you said that you think Bernie Sanders is a bigger threat to the market than the coronavirus. Do you still think that's true after the last couple of days? Yeah,
it's a good throw of line. But yeah, because I believe the coronavirus will be history by June, that's a view, okay, I take that position. But I think what has made America great is our commitment to capitalism. Sure, do we have flaws, we have problems, absolutely. But what he advocates is a $6 trillion deficit, and the deficit already is $1 trillion, okay? And I don't want to rely upon a divided government to basically freeze them. I think we have to work together as a country to deal with our problems, not have a divided government. But yes, I believe that Bernie Sanders and what he represents, this boosting of Castro, the attacking of Israel, the free everything. You know, sure, it's appealing, free. But, you know, basically, it's not realistic. It's not realistic. The problem with socialism, I'm quoting Margaret Thatcher, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. You know, he wants to spend somebody else's money. Let him get a job and work for a living rather than feed off the government, dole.
Lee, we've held you.
Don't get me too upset.
We've held you past the time we promised we'd let you go. I want to thank you very much for being with us today.
Keep fighting the good fight. Keep fighting the good fight.
Lee Cooperman, thank you.